It's July 28, 2026, and we're going to continue our history circle on tourism around the bay and cottage life, a very important part of the talk. And we didn't get to finish our questions from the other night, so I wanted to have our panel back, but we are missing Nancy Sutton-Nicholson, which is too bad. But we have Percy Affleck here, and we have, that's it, Tom, Sherry, Fernwood, and we have Jim Stafford from Charlottetown, all the way from Charlottetown. Percy's from work. Okay, and Barry Curtis is sitting in Nancy's place, and he may jump in and add some stories. So, Jim, I want to ask you, what do you think motivated your grandparents, Jim and Bessie Stafford, to run those cottages for such a long period of time, every summer taken up with that? What would motivate someone to do that?
I often wondered that myself. Well, my grandmother was a person that loved to talk to people. She was very friendly to everybody. I think it was in her genes that she had something like that. Not sure about my grandfather, but he was a pretty good sportsman, and he liked playing horseshoes, and he liked the beach. And I think that they must have had there must have been some interest in coming to that area before they started building the cottages. And I think a lot of the people probably from Freetown went down there. I know there's the odd time that when I went up there, I can remember that we'd go up on Saturday afternoon in Charlottetown, and the place would be packed. Now, sometimes it'd be a church picnic, and perhaps just a local picnic of some sort, but they were always busy there.
It's hard to imagine now. It's such a quiet spot now. Yeah. And we're talking about Stafford Shore in North Bedeque.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that.
Roughly what decade would that be, Jim?
I think they opened the cottages in the 20s, and then Dad left the farm in 25, and they knew then that he was the only child, so they then knew they had to sell the farm. So they sold it to Ivan Birch, and with the proviso that they could stay in the cottages, I think, for 15 years, and run the cottages for 15 years. So in 1951 or 52, they were out there. Yeah. But he was 80, around 80, and she would have been 73 or 74. Yeah. So they were ready to leave.
All right. Percy, has Lower Bedeque ever experienced a traffic rush?
A traffic rush?
Mm-hmm. You've told us about this.
I think
When you had a lot of locals staying in Lower Bedeque.
I don't know. I don't remember the story.
Okay. You told us that.
I think it was.
You have to get me back on
I
track.
think it was.
Have I got the wrong person?
Yeah.
All right.
I think
Who
it
am I?
was his neighbor down there, Daniel.
Danny
McClure.
McClure. Danny McClure told us that because they had all these locals down there in the cottages
From Summerside.
from Summerside, that in the morning, the road, you just start seeing the road. There went so-and-so, and then went the other one, and it became a very busy place for just, a short segment of time. And he thought it was so funny to see Lower Bedeque experience a work traffic rush because of the locals down there.
Yeah, it was, the point area was, developed fairly early and fairly quickly in the cottage business. At one time, Lauren McFarlane had the only cottage down there. And he would have had to make a special road to get to it because it was on the old Hector Laird farm. And I can remember as a youngster we came home from church one Sunday and our tractor was gone. Nice new Massey 22 tractor that Dad had bought, and it was gone. And to us kids, oh, somebody stole our tractor. And Dad said, oh no, he says, Lauren McFarland must have taken it. And anyway, maybe an hour later, our tractor came putt-putting up the road. Lauren sitting on the old Massey 22 with the narrow front ends, and he was bringing it back. And so that was kind of the relationship that Dad had with a lot of the summer people and Lauren McFarland, and Lauren felt quite comfortable to come and just take the tractor whenever he wanted.
That's comfortable. Yeah,
Anyway.
good bit of trust going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a great story.
So my wife Susan, she stayed with Lauren, her aunt and uncle there in the summertime, a few summers, because she worked at the bank in Summerside. And every afternoon at 4 o'clock, Lauren was going to the cottage. And she went with him, and then she came in the morning with him, just to work in Summerside.
Yeah. Yeah, so you would remember some of those people behind the wheel, meeting your aunt and uncle.
Well,
And Lauren
she
was,
did for sure.
yeah, sorry, Lauren was well known. You know, he worked with Simmons and McFarland,
Yeah.
and he was native of Fernwood. And anyway, just about everybody out this way, he trusted him completely to, you know, do a fair deal and all that sort of thing. And Lauren bought cattle and he sold coal, and I mean, anything he could make a buck at, I think he engaged in.
I think he used to go on some of the potato boats down south. I didn't know Lauren, he was dead before I got involved with Susan.
Yeah.
So who owned PEI Bag Company?
He was one of the
Well, Lauren was
That's
one
what
of
I
the
thought.
shareholders. I think there was 2 or 3.
And
Okay.
Walter Simmons.
Simmons.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Walter Simmons was another local guy, relatives that be speaking, and he did a lot of business with the farmers, selling fertilizer, machinery. I think the first new tractor Dad bought in the 50s, early 50s, was he bought it from Walter Simmons, and using the potato contract to finance it.
did the Simmons have a cottage?
Pardon?
Did the Simmons have a cottage down in Lorton?
Not down where Lauren McFarland was. He may have had one in the North Bedeque area. Does anybody remember?
Well, I thought they were from Kensington or something.
From where?
Kensington?
Kensington, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But Lauren, they still own the John Deere dealership.
Yeah.
They still own the Bay. It's funny, you talked the other night about that house, the derelict house.
The Laird house.
So what Laird was that? Was that
Hector.
Hector.
And Ephraim, Ephraim was Hector's father, like he went back another generation. And I think it was either Ephraim or another generation before that built the house.
But I went back to the cottage and told Susan that, and she said, well, I have a piece of dish set or something from that house.
Really?
Not a dish set, it's I think it's like a bowl for pickles or something, and it's in a metal, there's a metal bottom to it and a metal cap on it. And that's from that house, she said, but Pearlie gave it to her.
Okay,
And that's where Pearlie said it came from.
yeah. And you see, Lauren and Pearl would have had to buy the property that Lauren built his cottage on from the Lairds. Now, whether it was from Hector or his father Ephraim, I'm not sure which it would be. But I don't think there's any doubt that that was the very first cottage. Lauren McFarlane's cottage was the first one down there, as far
It was
as I
built in
know.
46 or something around there, 46.
Yeah,
So these lairds you're talking about, there was a Herman Laird who was supposedly Lucy Maud Montgomery was in love with. Is that one of them lairds then? From that house?
well, there was two Laird. There was Hector Laird or Ephraim Laird way down at the end.
Yes.
And then up next to John Wright's was another Laird family. Now, whether they were related, I'm not sure.
But isn't that where the little restaurant was for a few years?
Yes,
Yes.
That was where her,
that was the
Lucy
it's
Maud.
right now it's in a long ways
Yeah.
from the road, because when they cut down across the field, it made the house twice as long from the road.
So they changed the road is what you're saying, Percy.
Pardon?
They changed the road when they
Yes,
paved it.
the Lower Bedeque Road was unique in a way. There was about 7 right-angle turns coming down to the point, because all the farms were running parallel, and in those days you'd never think of going across the field in an angle, so you went along across where the fence went, and then you went another distance, and then another one, and so on. And nowadays, you come hell or high water, they take the shortest route, whether you wanted to do it or not.
This has nothing to do with cottages, other than it has something to do with Lower Bedeque and how the road has changed going down to cottages. You told me a story this is a while back, about, was it the doctor's wife, somebody who was a wild driver, would take those turns? It was a lady.
Oh, it's, yeah, that was Annie Lang.
Annie Lang.
Would this
okay.
be before pavement, Percy?
Yes, oh yeah. And before all those turns were taken out.
Okay.
There was about 6 right-angle turns going. But Annie Lang, did you know where Randall lives now?
Yes,
That's the Lang house.
okay.
Yeah, Annie Lang's house. And my father bought it in the 50s when she got too old to live alone. She moved into Summerside, and they put a for sale sign on the house. And I mean, by today's figures, I think it was, like $6,000 or something for the house, and a fairly big lot. And the for sale sign was stuck on the lawn for about 2 years. And Annie Lang was Lauren McFarlane's aunt. So Lauren was kind of in charge of selling her house after she died. And one day he came in to see my father, and he says, "Lauren," he says, "you're buying that house." And Dad says, "Well, I don't need another house." "Doesn't matter," he says. "You're buying that house." So the bidding started, and it was down instead of up. And finally it got down to a price that Dad just couldn't turn it down. So he says, "All right, I take it." Lauren says, "Sold." And anyway, and that would have been in the early 60s. So Dad ended up getting a house that he didn't need or want.
So I'm surprised he didn't move it. Moving
Well,
houses, I'm surprised it wasn't moved. It seemed to be the island way.
yeah,
Move.
anyway, we put a sign in the, there was a lot of traffic still going down to the point. So Dad just stuck a sign on the lawn for rent. And there was a man and his family that worked for the armed forces, and he was based in Summerside, and he'd come from Ontario, and he was looking for a place to live. And he didn't, because he kept being shuttled around, he had no interest in buying a place. He just wanted something to rent a place. So Frank Adamson was his name.
So Percy, the road down to Lower Bedeque at that time still went through your farm. You took a left, going around those
Yes.
farm fields.
Yeah,
Instead of-
you can down to, if you start at the school, it's a little easier to understand.
Right.
So from the school, you can down until you pass what used to be the Walter McCollum farm, the first on the right from the school. And then it turned left and then went by the Clayton McClure
Farm.
farm. And then it turned again and went down past where Douglas Affleck was. And just past Douglas's, it turned again and it went by our house. And then it turned again and went down to towards the cottages that everybody's.
It must have been quite a thrill to ride with Mrs. Lang on that road.
Well, it was, and I always tell the story about Annie Lang, our next door neighbor.
Yeah.
She had one of the first cars in Lower Bedeque. And anyway, she was an aunt to Lauren
Right,
McFarland.
you did said that, yeah.
And she would go down to visit Lauren. And on all these sharp corners, she'd come around on the inside, no matter which direction she was going in, and she'd lay on the horn. Right behind our barn was one of the turns, and you hear beep, beep, and it would be Annie Lang coming around the corner. And instead of going around the outside, she'd be coming around the inside, and she figured blowing the horn was
Safe.
all she had to do, yeah.
Okay, all right, we better get back on the topic, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear about the road, particularly how it has changed. So, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
The other night, I guess it was Nan that was talking about playing games or something down there. In our sunroom in the cottage, the inside of the cottage, the walls are pine boards. In our sunroom, they played darts in there, and the walls full of whole dart holes.
It's about having fun.
Some actor, somebody used to play darts in that room.
Yeah, the cottage life was a lot simpler and easier than
Yeah.
what it is now. Yeah, yeah. I noticed in that photo of Sandra Dodd's family, there was a dartboard. I don't know if anyone noticed back behind on the wall from their family photo.
There's a an old coconut board there. Lots of cards.
So we talked that night about when electricity and plumbing went down through, that was Lower Bedeque, and and how that affected cottage life, brought in more amenities. What about Fernwood, Tom? When did Fernwood see power come
See
down
the
through?
light of day?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it would have been back in the 50s when it first went through. Douglas McFarland, a neighbor up the road, when the Scales is from South Freetown were putting electricity through the different communities. Douglas McFarland, he laid out where he felt that the power line should go throughout Fernwood, and they went by that. So he had drawn it all out on a piece of paper, and basically it was for them to get to the shortest point to every home so it wouldn't cost a whole lot of money to do. So back then in the 50s, electricity came from Freetown where there was a dam there, electrical plant. So it didn't come from Maritime Electric, so.
Came from the scales,
Yeah.
production
I
thing.
think that's right.
And the lines cut across the field,
Yes.
you know, from here to there, it didn't matter what was in the road, because it was less expensive
Right,
than
it
following the
compensated.
road.
Shortest distance.
Yeah.
Well, I know from our cottage to Finisters, cut through our land. And I got Maritime Electric to take a good job, but they did follow them, put it up and follow the roads.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But before electricity arrived for any of us, it was back then, it was oil lamps, and maybe some people might have had some like gas motors or what have you to produce electricity.
Now, Connie McFarland, in her memoir, she said that the Hazel and Walter Laird had power before the rest of the neighborhood, and that would have been in the 40s.
Or no, it would have been back probably
Earlier.
even into the 20s.
They were some of the earliest.
Yeah.
And because she said they had a really nice house, and then I loved her short little sentences. She said they had lights in every room.
Right.
Like that was when no one else even had power.
Yeah.
And so it was quite a thing to have lights in every room.
Yeah.
So why did they have power?
Power?
Were they wealthier?
They probably were back then in the 20s, and a lot of people got into the foxes, the silver fox industry, and they were probably one of the first around. And they happened to hit it when the prices of the silver fox industry was rising, and they were right at the top, so they made a lot of money off of selling pairs of silver foxes, male and females, for breeding purposes. And my father told me at one time they had a pair of silver foxes, and they were offered $25,000 for the pair, but they wouldn't take $25,000 because they didn't think it was enough. And then all of a sudden, as fast as it went up, it went down even faster, and they ended up, they didn't get that for it. But they made a lot of money off that. And then there was the dirty 30s that everybody experienced that was alive back then. And they ended up, then they switched over into the tourism industry, converted their house into like a bed and breakfast as today.
Okay. So it was the 30s when they started.
Yes.
And that's interesting. So that was for income, because I wondered why they did it. If they were wealthy enough to have power ahead of everyone else and have a really nice home, why did they go to the trouble of entering the tourism business? So that explains why.
Yes.
Okay.
And back then, labor was cheap. You could hire a person
Well-
for $1 a day.
Well, like
feed
we
them, put
said
them up.
with Edna Pino, I mean, she probably made maximum $25 a month, and
Yes.
she,
Worked
worked
7 days a
continuously.
week.
so yeah, labor was cheap. I think they treated her well.
Oh,
She
yes.
seemed very happy,
Yes.
reading through the diary, a very happy person.
Yes.
I think they treated her really well. Yeah, so, oh, I ask you, Tom, could you tell us again, where was Idlewild, it's hard to say, you call it a different name than I do, what do you call it?
I know wild.
It's a very strange spelling,
Yeah.
I-D-L-Y,
I will idle,
yeah.
something like that.
It's a
All right.
weird, I haven't.
That was the name of their tourism home and their farm back
They gave
then.
it an interesting name.
They also
Yeah.
had one of the first cottages at the shore in Sunset Beach area. There was them, and then there was Edwin and Fed McFarland. They had a cottage in Salutation Cove. And then the other ones down closer to the point, the lower end of the Fernwood would have been Cyril and Beatrice McFarland. They were one of the first ones also to have 2 cottages.
Right, and we talked to Marjorie, their daughter, and we
Yes.
got some like really interesting stories from her about Beatrice running that. It's IDYLWI.
So how do you?
Idlewild.
Idlewild,
Okay.
Idyll. Like this.
Idlewild
Y in the
is
middle.
the way they
What was
put
it? How did they?
Idlewild.
Do you remember it?
It's the way they
Do you
pronounce it.
remember it?
It suggests laying back and taking it easy.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
You know, that's what they were selling.
Okay.
Besides a place to sleep, it was a place where you could go and just relax.
Right. That was the big selling point of PEI at that time. We don't sell that so much anymore, but still, people still come for that. But now we need to keep visiting, we need to keep our tourists entertained. It's a different take on tourism now than what it was then, for sure. So, Tom, where was it located? Can you tell me again where Idlewild was located?
It was about about the fourth farmhouse as you entered Fernwood.
Now, what's entering Fernwood?
Entering Fernwood is what we, from the Shelton Fernwood turnoff, and
Yes.
then what we call, you used to go through the big woods. And back in the day, there was no ditches. There was really nothing, right? So it was just pathways through the woods there that were probably about 20 feet wide, enough for a couple of cars to pass or whatever. And then we had some S-turns going into Fernwood, just like Percy had them lower, but I couldn't let them get ahead of us or whatever. But then the next farm would have been the old Alexander Anderson farm, which was the first farm in Upper Seagow Head at the time. And then the next farm was Henderson Farm, George
right.
Henderson
Okay.
on the left.
Oh, it's on the left, okay.
Anderson's was on the right,
Okay.
Henderson's was on the left. And then the next farm was another Henderson, a brother. And then the next farm was the Laird, Walter and Hazel Laird farm.
So the house is still there today?
Oh, yes.
And, okay. So is there a road opposite, or is there anything,
There
a
isn't.
marker from today?
There is a road opposite the farm that heads you down towards Sunset Beach.
Okay.
Yeah,
And do you know the name of that road?
Idlewild.
Oh, it is the name of the.
And then they switched it over to when Donnie and Mildred McFarlane ended up getting the Laird place. Now they've named it the Don McMillie Road,
Oh.
after
Okay,
Donnie
so
and
if I'm
Mildred, so
looking
it's
for
Don
it, I'm gonna
McMillie.
find it under Don McMillan Road.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good for people to know where that was, because it was one of the most successful tourism operations in the early 1900s.
Yes.
Fernwood really led the pack in tourism. It's quite interesting. Even before the North Shore was taken off,
Yeah.
but Fernwood was really giving them a run for their money.
They had the McFarlane place down at the end of the, what road, what do they call it now?
Salutation Cove Road.
Yeah,
Yes.
they had a huge house there.
Briarcliff,
Yeah.
that was Federica.
Edward and Frederica.
Yeah.
They had no kids, so they had.
Yeah.
When my mother moved down from Western PEI, that's where she first worked, was in the McFarlane's Tours business.
What decade would that have been?
And, well,
30s?
it would have been around the Second World War.
I'll be in the 1940s,
Yeah,
Like
in
in,
the late 30s.
Yeah.
late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did she ever tell any stories about it, Percy?
Not a whole lot. The big story was that my father married her.
Lucky you.
And the interesting story there is that the McFarlanes were Protestant,
Oh dear.
and a lot of Fernwood was Catholic.
Easy.
Tom,
The lower part.
in those days, you know, you didn't marry out of your circle. So when my mother came down from Greenmount to work, and she just answered an ad in the paper, and she came down by train to Summerside, and then the McFarlanes picked her up and took her to their place where she worked in this tourist home. And but she was a Protestant, and all of her friends her age were Catholic.
I'm sure one of them was that.
And do you identify with any of this, Tom?
Keep going.
Anyway, Tom, and so never, you know, it wasn't acceptable either way to marry out of your religion, you know. And so So there my mother was, a Protestant working in a Protestant,
Business.
home
Yeah.
where they were renting space. And then my father lived on the other side of the Gulf there.
Salutation Cove.
Yeah, and he was Protestant, so it was okay for her to date him.
Okay.
And, well, and it's history after that.
I always thought about that with Hazel Laird at Idlewild and the Pino, because they would have been a Protestant Catholic relationship, but there was never an issue. They were obviously had a good relationship, really good relationship.
Back in them days, the Catholics were noted for having larger families than the Protestants. And in order for them Catholics to feed their family, they had to have their families go out to work with the neighbors in order for them to survive, because back then the families, all the families, Protestant, Catholic, whatever, a lot of them were poor.
Yeah, like you said, the 30s,
Yeah.
yeah, 40s.
You know, there was, as I understand it, there wasn't much money around
No.
with anybody, but there was the occasional time. I think the McFarlanes, you know, they had a bit of money,
Yeah.
but most of them were just existing.
So when you got into cottages and or farm, I don't know.
Home tourism.
Farm tourism, bread and breakfast and stuff like that, that would be equivalent, significant way to generate cash.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
And the same for your grandparents too. Yeah, I mean, you can love it, but it's still hard work. So there's gotta be some more motivation, so money would definitely be a motivating.
So back in those days, it was all handwork with everything you done. So if you wanted to build a cottage, you had to go to the woods, cut the lumber down by hand. You had to haul it to the sawmill by hand, haul it home, and then do it all by hand. There was none of this what we have today.
Did your grandfather build those cottages? You know?
I would assume so, but I think Dad built one. But for the most part, they built them, because he, as I said, he left in 2025 for sure.
And the other thing that we talked about was the telephone. Okay, you get to those cottages and you were like cut off from the world. There was no telephone. Am I right with that? Yeah, we're talking about 20s, 30s, 40s, even into the 50s. Am I right on that?
Yes,
Because-
people just didn't have the money back then for everything.
To run those lines. And
Yeah.
Sandra Dodd said, now this is Lower Bedeque, that they didn't get a phone till 1953, something like that. And so they would always go to callbacks. They'd have to go up to use the phone at callbacks. It was an old crank phone. She remembers it and saying what a novelty it was. You go to callbacks and get on the crank phone. Make your phone call.
I remember my
And everybody was listening and rubbernecking, they called it.
Rubberneck.
My uncle and aunt and uncle from Boston used to come up and visit my other aunts and my mother and so on. And he used to phone home, now and again. And it was a crank phone down in Bridgetown or Dundas. And he had to go to an operator in Charlottetown, or perhaps even in Cardigan, and then Charlottetown, and then St. John, New Brunswick, and then somewhere else, and all along the line.
So he talked to each one of them?
Well, you had to,
Or they would do
they
that?
were all private, they weren't joined
All
up there.
private
They had to interconnect them all.
companies.
It
Oh,
was
that's
quite an
really,
ordeal.
that's really interesting.
So, we were,
She wouldn't remember, she's too young for it.
yeah, Ken Walker, did that name ring a bell? Then it likely does do.
I've heard that.
When artificial breeding cattle first started, Ken was one of the technicians, and he later went on to teach high school in Summerside. But in those days, when you had a cow that was in heat and ready to be bred, you would call Ken, and he'd come around and artificially breed the cow. And there's one story was that somebody in Lower Bedeque was receiving a call from Ken, and of course everybody in Lower Bedeque was listening. You know, you put your hand over the mouthpiece, and Ken was supposedly said, "Okay, ladies, time to hang up. We're going to breed cows now."
Quick.
Yeah, but that's a story that's been around our family for, you know, from the early 50s, yeah.
Oh, I do remember party lines, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were lots of fun with the neighbors.
But you could hear click, click, click,
Yeah,
click,
yeah,
click,
yeah.
and everybody.
My dad used to talk to one of our neighbors. He'd say, "Okay, Dorothy, you
So
can hang
for-
up now."
So just on that note, for the Bedeque area, Ralph Lord that lived up in central Bedeque, he used to have the telephone office in his house. And it would run 24 hours a day because it just had to. And he hired different locals from Fernwood, Shelton, Lower Bedeque, or Bedeque to go work in these. And one of them was my oldest sister, June Sherry. And this was back in the early 60s, and she went there to work, and she'd be hearing it in one ear and then going out the other ear, and she'd be plugging these things into different places to connect it all, right?
So I would like to pursue that for another history talk.
Next year.
Yeah. So can you tell me, this probably doesn't apply to Jim at all, but I'm curious if you can tell me how things can shift with one new cottager coming in by the name of Art Clark. How did things shift in Lower Bedeque, Percy, when
Well,
Art bought land?
The first cottage, to my knowledge, was Lauren McFarlane, or one of the first ones. Would that be correct?
I would think so.
Yeah. And then there was a couple of other cottages, Tantons and one thing and another.
Oh,
And then along comes how Lauren
Art.
Art Clark, and he builds a cottage. And he looks out and he sees the field running all the way up to Hector Laird's house, not a space on it, you know. So being the entrepreneur that he was, Art bought all the shorefront off of the Hector Laird farm, all the way from where his cottage was up to where our family cottage is now. And then you had, I wouldn't say half a mile, but awful close. Then he just chopped it all up into subdivisions and started selling them off. And a lot of people from Summerside bought them.
That's when the locals started moving
Yeah.
in. What year? Do you know what year that is?
What year?
Yeah, roughly.
Well, it'd be in the early 50s, I think.
Didn't he?
1952 or 3 or 4, somewhere along there.
Percy, didn't he block the road there one time?
Alright.
Didn't he block the road there one time?
Art,
Yeah.
I think I
Him and
remember.
Lauren was in quite a fight over that.
Yeah,
Susan would know what, but I don't know much about it.
Art, yeah, it was a popular Sunday afternoon venue was to go to the beach.
Of a Collins Point.
Yeah, and after Art acquired all this shore frontage, he tried to stop the Sunday afternoon traffic from using the beach. I think that's what you're referring to, is it, Jim?
Well, I think he stopped Lauren too. Was there another?
Stop
I
Lauren.
think so, didn't he? Well, he tried to.
He tried to, he's biting off quite a point to stop Lauren.
Yeah. It didn't last very long.
No.
No. Let's take a little break, and then if we think of something else, we'll finish up with a few more questions.
I'm not too sure if Lauren and really liked each other too much.
McCollum's Point. Percy, do you want to continue? Oh, we just had a bite of cookie.
All right, somebody else's turn.
Percy's telling us about the history of McCollum's Point and how two brothers owned the end, and the road went down and stopped and it entered their farm. That was the end of the road. So, there you go.
Well, the Hector Laird place was one house. It was the McCollum house at one time. And the other one was on the other side of the road, right where the bush is.
Okay, so I'm just gonna back up a little bit. So Percy, the Hector Laird house is the one that got hauled up into the field? No, that's a different one. It's a different Laird, okay. All right, sorry, keep going. Just want to check and see which house it is.
Yeah, well, you know, the place is known as McCollum's Point for a reason.
All right,
You know, the McCollums at one time, two brothers owned basically the whole point. And then the Lairds acquired one of the McCollum places. And the other McCollum place was acquired in later generations. Like one McCollum place went an extra generation run by the McCollums. And that's on the Summerside side of the road. But at one point, the public road ended right there, right in his yard. And there was a hand-dug well, and there was a fairly nice house, and a couple of barns, and a hired man's house. And my father and I cleaned all that up when we acquired the property. It was pretty much all a bit of junk anyway, but you know, we tore down the house, we tore down the hired man's house, we filled up the well, the hand-dug well, because it was a treacherous spot, you know. Anyway, so really, there's nothing there that would indicate that there was ever a homestead there.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that there was. Of course, you see it on the old Meacham's 1880
Yeah.
map and so on, but
In reality, it was quite a significant farm operation because it had at least a couple of barns, a house for the owner, a house for the hired man. You know, it was significant at one time. But what did it in the end, was the power stopped. Where our house is now, the power line. And the two farms down the road, including the Hector Laird place, were denied service of, you know, of electrical service.
Is that because they would have had to go across your property to get to their properties?
No, it's not, I think there was a general agreement with all the owners that you could take the shortest route. And if the road went like this, but the power line could go anywhere it wanted, that same, but you had to put money in the pot to everybody that was going to benefit from the power line had to contribute to the cost.
Yes.
And And that's where the problem came. The two farms further down, relatively speaking, distance-wise, their share to have power line the same as our family had
Too
would have been
expensive
much greater than,
Would have been prohibitive.
because they were paying,
for the distance.
yeah, the
Yeah.
greater distance, and there was nobody else to share the cost with.
Yeah,
And,
Would you remember the ice storm back in 1956?
the what?
Ice storm where it took down all the power lines
Yeah.
everywhere? When you were a young fellow back then, did you work on restoring the power lines?
As a kid, yeah, I was went with my father. I wouldn't call it working, but I went and watched them, put new wires up.
Yes.
And there was Douglas McFarland and Douglas Affleck were the only two pole climbers.
Oh, yes.
And the rest of the farmers, this is after the ice storm we're talking about.
Okay, yes.
And the rest of the farmers kind of did the grunt work,
Yes.
while Douglas and the two Douglases
Yeah.
climbed the poles.
Yeah.
And I remember, like they one crew would dig a hole,
Right.
another crew would stand the pipe of the
Post.
pole up,
Yes.
another crew would come along and tamp the.
Yes.
And at one point, and Horace Wright was one of the climbers,
Oh, yes.
and they stuck the pole in the big hole.
Right.
And before they got all the clay in, Horace was
Going up the
going up the pole.
Yeah.
And when he got up to the top, and you've seen linesmen working, and your rear end sticking out, and your arms are in, and your feet are in, but the pole is top heavy.
Yeah.
So anyhow, Horace was right up at the top, and all of a sudden the pole went like this, and it started going around. And instead of being on top of the pole, he was on the underneath side.
Yeah. Donnie McFarland told a story one time back when that ice storm hit in 1956. He was a climber too, right?
Yeah.
But instead of going up and down the light poles, when they would string one wire from one light pole to the next and then go to put the next one up, he would hold on to the top wire and put his feet on the bottom wire and go from pole to pole that way.
Walking on the wire.
Walking on the wire.
I've never heard that. That'd be quite a feat.
Yeah, Donnie McFarland done that, he told us.
yeah. Edna Pino, again, from her diary, from Idlewild, she a couple times mentions the men are out repairing the lines. So it was up to the local men
Communities.
to keep those lines
Oh,
open.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't get out and help fix the lines, then they had no electricity, and then all of a sudden, you had to go back to the old days, which a lot of them didn't have their kerosene lamps, or nobody wanted to go back to milking cows by hand back then, right?
No, well, and you didn't want to go back to oil lamps either.
Or, no, or hand pumping water.
Well, that was
That's right.
fun for the summer, but not
I
for,
just have one question per person. The road now that goes down to the lighthouse, is that a public road or a private road?
It's debatable.
well, if you looked on those maps.
If you asked Eric Clark, he'd say no.
Percy,
He's
on
not
those
around.
maps that I showed, if you saw what the Google Maps did, it says Route 112, right to the end and loops around.
Yeah,
Route
it goes back up.
112. I don't know how much authority they have, Google Maps, but they have it mapped. as
That's today's version.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. We're Jim and I are talking about the 1950s
Okay.
version.
Yeah, that's quite a bit older than the rest
Yeah,
of us.
that's
there.
altogether different. Yeah, yeah.
So Percy, can you tell me, when you and Marilyn decided to turn your farm home into a tourism business, you did this for a few years.
Yeah,
What was your business plan?
make money.
Smart cookie.
I think you,
My wife wanted to make money. She, her priority was to raise a family, not work. You know, not work for
Outside of the house.
outside of the house. So running a tourist business allowed her to do both.
right.
And that's how we got into the tourist business.
I think you told me it was something like move the children into one bedroom and cook more and do more laundry, something like that. That was your business.
Yeah, well, we had, let me see, the 5-bedroom house. And during the modernizing process of, you know, electrical and
Plumbing.
the only bathroom or toilet in the house was in a small room off the master bedroom, which worked great at that time, but in today's world it would have meant that everybody else in the house had to go through the master bedroom to get to and so I mean that changed over the years, but from a practical point of view, having a flush toilet in the house that worked, you know, at least expense made more sense than having it serve all the bedrooms, you know.
Yeah.
And
So you had to do something with the plumbing before you?
yes, yeah, everything when we got married in 1966, you know, all that got changed.
So before that, you would have just had what they called an outhouse?
Well, yeah, before, that's right, but there was,
Was yours a 2-seater or a single-seater?
it was a 2-seater, I think we went all the way.
Well, good, bring
It
it
was the same as the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
So,
See, none of it's there now, but except the house. The house was built in 1906 and it's still there.
the house.
Alex lives in it.
Oh, okay.
But between the house and the barn, there was what they called a hen house and a pig house. No, a hen house and a pig house and a machine shed, and then the barn. And so before modern plumbing came along, the outhouse was part of one of the what was the hen house. There was an end of the building, a section of the building was modernized a bit with match boards and stuff, and that was an indoor outhouse, as we used to call it. You know, it wasn't a little building that would tip over in the wind or anything like that. It was part of the hen house. And so in other words, when you had to go, you had to make a little trip, you know, at least the width of this room here to get from the house to the outhouse.
These are things we don't think about now, but plumbing, modern plumbing was essential to tourism taking off. That's kind of a weird thought, but it really was very important for it.
Yeah.
Well, you could just imagine these people coming from away, especially the big cities. They had all of the luxuries and the modern, like plumbing and toilets and showers and bathtubs, and they come here and there's none of that, even though they knew that beforehand, but it's quite a shock to
Yeah,
the system.
Jim talks about that as a kid, it's fun, but that
But there
wasn't
was a
that.
lot of comments in that diary there that didn't mention that, they just enjoyed themselves.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, they were prepared for that, that's what they were prepared.
I think it was 1952 before we had the first indoor plumbing.
Federica, who ran, Federica Laird, who ran,
I know a while.
Briarcliff.
Oh,
I'm going to
right,
Briarcliff.
yes.
Connie McFarland, I forget her last name, but in her memoirs, she says that eventually the friends and family stopped staying at her folks' house and went across the road and stayed with Aunt Federica, and Fed, as they used to call her, because, and she's very succinct, she said she had a bathroom. I mean, it was a big deal to have running water, and a flushing toilet was a big deal. So she had that in, she had plumbing in, and the same with Idlewild. They had plumbing in very early, much earlier than the rest of the homes.
So
So it's
when
hardly a tourism business.
Yes, when Connie was talking about that, there was 2 large homes in the same yard. The one that she was born in and grew up with. The other one then was another house there.
Right,
But
yeah.
that sort of thing all the time. You know, when we were kids, Mom and Dad would take us to Nova Scotia, and of course, wherever we went, you had to get a motel that had a TV. So it's the same idea, is you had to get a place that had the proper bathroom.
Yeah.
Bathrooms
It's
are
just-
essential.
And today, it's
Wi-Fi, yeah, Wi-Fi, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've come a long way. I guess we'll wrap it up, and I really appreciate all your thoughts.
Go ahead,
Last
Larry.
minute.
Question for Percy. When you rented your bedrooms or guests in your house, you had
Yeah.
guests in your house, would the guests hang around the farm and try and help?
No, they hung around the farm, but well, I shouldn't say they didn't try to help, but they were kind of more of a nuisance than, you know.
Well, they just wouldn't have been used to farming.
Well, no, that was the whole, we advertised as the farm bed and breakfast. And the name farm worked wonders in terms of getting business. You know, everybody from the cities around, you know, eastern United States, everybody wanted to come to the farm.
They want
Yeah.
authentic, what they now call an authentic experience. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, you know, our advertising wasn't, we called it kind of like farm bed and breakfast or whatever at the time. And the word farm is what,
Drop them in.
you know, brought people in. They wanted to experience country life.
One other story I'd like to add is that Lauren and Norman and Seaman Reeves, all brothers from Ross's Corner, they used to have a cottage down in Shelton first, next to the Shelton Provincial Park now. Anyways, things were getting busier there, so they went looking for shore frontage and they ended up down in Fernwood below our place. So Lauren, into the construction business, he had a small bulldozer, and this was back in the day when there was no pavement. So he put skids underneath the cottage and he hooked onto the cottage with the bulldozer and dragged it all the way to Fernwood from Shelton down the road and put it where he wanted to, right? And that would have been back in the about mid-1955. And then also at the same time, that was down next to where Cyril and Beatrice McFarland had their 2 cottages. But then there was a George and Marion Meikle came out from Summerside, and they were fairly well-to-do. George was a big businessman. And they built the cottage in the early 1950s at what they called the Point back then. So myself and 3 younger brothers in the 60s being entrepreneurs, and in our house we had potatoes for breakfast, dinner, and supper. The potatoes at breakfast time would have been fried potatoes left over from supper the day before. So anyways, when we were young, we thought, okay, we eat potatoes 3 times a day. These cottage owners, they should eat potatoes 3 times a day. So we always used to go to George and Marion Meikle's with a small bread bag full of fresh new potatoes, right? 25 cents, and she would serve us cookies and milk. So we thought we would be a little smarter, that each time we went, there was 2 different brothers went at different times, and then that way we were all getting a little bit of the money and the cookies and the milk, right? But every time we went to sell them potatoes, they bought them. Now, what they done with them, we don't know, but they bought them every time.
That's quite adventurous tourism at a young
Well, it
age.
was. But even today now, in 2026, Seacow Head Lighthouse, which was built in 1864 and was seen by the Fathers of Confederation going by sailing to the Charlottetown Conference, it was turned over to the Friends of Seacow Head Lighthouse in September the 7th, 2022. And the Friends of Seacow Head Lighthouse, Inc. is a non-profit group, and it is owned by all the people that have property or homes or cottages in Fernwood. So we opened it up to the public in 2024 after we turned the lighthouse into a museum on 5 floors. And then we also built a small cafe with washroom facilities which was needed. So in our first summer of operation, from 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening, 7 days a week, from June the 20th to September the 1st, our students recorded a little over 5,500 people that went through the door. Now this was quite a change to the year-round residents of Fernwood because they weren't used to all this traffic coming. There was some before, right? So what do? We open it up again in 2025, June 20th to September the 1st, 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening. We recorded a little over 7,200 in that 10-week period. And that summer, it was sort of at times like boat traffic. We would notice there would be 4, 5, or 6 vehicles in a row coming to the lighthouse. This summer, we've opened it up in June the 21st, same time period and everything. We're already up over 800 people over last year.
Already.
800 people. So the tourists are coming, we're just providing it, and the majority of the people are coming from all over the world, and the main reason they're coming is that that lighthouse was in the show road to Avonlea, and they're literally coming to see Gus Pike's lighthouse. Now, you
This
have
is
probably...
like Anne of Green Gables.
Well, it is, but you have probably heard there's been a new film produced on PEI now, and it's based on a #1 best-selling book. This summer will be different by Carly Fortune, and they are today filming out in Cavendish on the beach along the north shore there. The whole road is closed down to tourism
And it has to
traffic.
go tomorrow.
They can drive through, but they can't park anyways. But next week, this film crew, which is 170 people plus, are coming to Seacow Head Lighthouse to film for 1 day. And the only 2 segments they're doing is people biking up to the lighthouse and biking away from the lighthouse, and also 4 people jumping off the cliff into the cave, into the water. So it's a big, and their budget is
Are
$15
you one of
million.
the ones jumping off the cliff?
No, I can't swim. Just on that note, I can't swim, but when my brothers and I were younger, my 3 younger brothers, they could all swim. So we went over to the lighthouse this day to go swimming, and we had a tractor and a manure spreader, 6,000 Ford. So we get over there, and they could go down in and jump in, but I couldn't swim, so I wouldn't win unless I had a ladder to go out. So I went home and I got a wooden ladder, threw it over the bank, they put it in, I went down the wooden ladder to go swimming, and when I get into the water, there was only 2 feet of water. First and last time I was ever in there. That was quite the thing. 2 feet of water, me worried about drowning. That's the end of
They
my
were
story.
pulling a stunt on you, were they?
I don't know.
I did have a couple general questions. Now that I realize, I wanted to add a few general questions. And one of them, actually, Tom, was to ask you, did the Fernwood community at large happily accept the changes that the tourism and cottage industry has brought? Because change is painful.
Yes. Basically, they have until we've opened the lighthouse, and it's quite a cultural shock to them. But up until that time, each year since the 50s, there was new cottages being built and developed, and the farmers were selling off the shore property for maybe a third of an acre for $250 or $500, whatever. That was a lot of money back then for families. And today we have about 160 cottages in Fernwood, and we probably have about 40 year-round homes in Fernwood. But each year there's either a new house or a new cottage going up, and these new homes today they're building are starting about $250,000 going up to $500,000 or more. And the cottage, they're expensive too.
A lot of change.
Yeah.
Are they buying up old cottage properties and building new buildings?
What they're doing, the ones that have the money are tearing the old cottages down because it's cheaper to start from scratch.
Okay, I have 3 more questions, we're gonna do
Okay.
them fast, okay?
No problem.
Okay, if cottages are not an investment into financial gain, what would you say that you are investing into? If a cottage is not a financial gain, what is it that you're investing in?
So to me personally, we're investing into a way of life on PEI. If you talk to a lot of people, number one thing they'll tell you when they get here, it's the people they meet here. It's, you know what, and we need this to help our economy in Prince Edward Island to keep functioning. That's the reality of
financial
it
gain.
today.
Yeah. What would you say young people are investing into?
I think it's nice to have a change, you know, from living in Charlottetown all the time, you know, for 10 months of the year and coming up here for 2. And it's nice to have a place year-round to go to. I mean, we can't get down there for a good part of the year, but it's just nice to have another place to go.
Change of pace.
Now, I don't know whether finances really comes into it, but eventually, I guess you hope you get your money back out of it anyhow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you think of this tourism motto? Give the tourist what he wants.
Give the
Give
tourist,
the tourist what he wants and you'll have tourism success.
I think a lot of them are just seeking out what we have, we take for granted. Peace, quiet, beauty. Like at the Sea Cow Head Lighthouse, we have it all there. And we put up an osprey's nest when we first opened up in 2024. We had a couple come into it last year, osprey, and built their nest and everything. This year, they come back and they've laid eggs in the osprey's nest. Now that they've hatched, we literally have people coming just to sit there and film and photograph these osprey because they come out of there and then the first thing is they're flying out over the bank into the water, grabbing a fish, going back to the nest. And every day we have 3 benches out there and they're full all the time. You know, they just love that.
So it's,
I think if you base your life on financial gain, I don't know whether you really get anything out of life or not.
Right.
Really.
yeah,
No, that's true.
That's all.
that's true.
And the tourists, like when we used to get out in New Hampshire through there a lot. And I don't know whether we really knew what we wanted, but when we got there, we were surprised what we saw.
Mm.
You know, I'm not sure if that's
tourists,
really,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, it does make sense. It's not, life isn't all about money, quite frankly, and that's really what we're saying here. It's more important, and we did talk about this at the History Circle, to invest into family than how much money's in the bank. I mean, you have to be, I'm sure, responsible, but
tourists recognize the real thing when they see it.
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
good
you know,
statement.
A fake something or other, it doesn't fool anybody.
No.
It's,
That goes back to that authentic, they're looking for
Well,
something authentic.
I think in Prince Edward Island, we do a pretty good job of being authentic. The experience is authentic.
And we're pretty quick to pick up when it isn't,
That's right,
yeah.
yeah. They've seen enough to know the real thing is from
Yeah.
a Hatch project or something.
So can you give me, between the 3 of you, 3 things that Bedeque and area around our bay has to offer a summer visitor? You already mentioned some of them. 3 things that we have to offer a summer visitor.
The warmest waters on the south side, PEI, this side of,
the beaches are better here than they are.
Yes.
I know the closer you get to Shoreline, we get muddy, but up here, the beach is great.
Oh, yes.
All right,
Yeah.
so warm, clear beaches.
Yes.
When they had these summer games here, I don't know when that
Oh, yes.
was, they were down at our cottage filming on the beach. Now, we get down there on a Friday afternoon and these big trucks are around the cottage. I didn't know what they were doing there. Anyhow, they told me, go in and see Murphy in Summerside, the city,
Mhm.
and he'll tell you what it's all about. So I went in there and threw it Monday morning, and he said, oh, didn't they ask permission to get down there? I said, no. He said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I'd just like to know what they were doing there. And he said that this crew that were doing the film for the
Summer games.
summer games,
Yes.
they looked everywhere to get a nice beach. And the one they found was in that area.
Stafford Shore.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Lower
no,
Bedeque,
yeah,
Lower Bedeque, I'm sorry,
yeah,
I'm in Lower Bedeque.
That was the
Yeah,
nicest beach they found.
interesting.
Yeah, that's where they took the pictures.
We've all been tourists,
Oh, yes.
you know, when we go other places, and you can always tell when you're being had, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
there's the legitimate experience and there's the cooked one, you know, that's just made to grab money.
So what are you saying we're offering, Percy? We're offering,
Well, I think one of our strong points is we're offering legitimate experiences,
Mhm.
wouldn't you
Nothing
say?
bad.
Yes.
Fabricated.
Yes.
And,
a real look at island life.
yeah, in some ways, you know, we've all gone to Cavendish on a busy Sunday afternoon and it's shoulder to shoulder people on the beach. It's kind of hard to see what's legitimate there other than the sand and the sun. But if that's what you're looking for, you're finding it.
Yeah.
But there are other things that draw people too, you know.
So, the best beaches around on the island, and a genuine experience of island life. I like that word authentic, so I keep going back to it. And what would be a third thing?
What
What would be a third thing that would draw tourists to the Bedeque area?
Well, I think that museum would draw them.
The museum and the lighthouse.
Used to be the village store at one time.
Yes. Speaking of the genuine, the real
Yeah.
No,
authentic
it was
experience,
because the village store was a gathering place for Shelton, Fernwood, Lower Bedeque, Central Bedeque and the surrounding communities. Everybody used to go there just to meet their neighbors. And for as long as it was open, we were fortunate to be able to do that because we got to know our neighbors in our outlying communities. And since it's closed, all those young people that we used to know, they've moved on in life now, and I wouldn't know hardly any of them now because you don't see their parents or grandparents. So that's been the biggest
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. And that has to do with the people of Bedeque, which
Oh, yeah.
really is another.
It's a generational thing,
Yes.
yeah, and you can't, you know, time marches on, you can't change everything.
No.
But we will continue bringing tourists and cottage dwellers here because of those things, because we have authenticity, we have beautiful beaches, and we have peace and quiet still here. We haven't developed to the point of Cavendish. So they have some alternative to Cavendish by coming to our area.
Once a year, Susan and I always go up to Albert and take Nish.
Mhm.
Beautiful drive,
Oh, yeah.
beautiful homes, the landscape is, it's the nicest you get anywhere. Going up through Albert and Tyne Valley and so on. And
pride of ownership.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
And beautiful kept properties,
yeah.
you know, every lawn is cut, just.
Them islanders, they love to
Yeah.
cut grass.
That's one of my big jobs.
If you drive, like, my mother's family's from Tiglish area, and, you know, in my lifetime, we've made the trip between Bedeque and Greenmount hundreds of times. And it's authentic, you know, I don't think any of it is cooked up, you know.
No.
No, it's, some of the little houses, they're very cheap, but they might be immaculate in terms of the yard, and I bet you if you went inside the house, it would be immaculate,
Yes.
you know. It's pride of ownership, it's not value of ownership, it's pride of ownership,
That we have.
and that we have.
Well, thank you, all of you.
But
for
just
participating.
before we end, if you don't mind me saying, I've worked with Valerie over the years, probably the last 15 years with the Bedeque Museum when we were on the board of directors together. And we went out around into the communities each year for about 7 or 8 years, and we would interview the people in the different communities, 5 or 6 different places. And all of that has been recorded, all of that history has been saved. And I want to thank you for Valerie for doing it. You've done an excellent job. I love your talks at the history in the Bedeque Museum and that, but for you and Barry and your family to invite us into your home today, and especially to have your daughter and grandchildren here to listen to it, that's what it's all about, because we're passing it on down to the next generation or two. And I just want to say thank you, Barry, Valerie. You've done well. You've done well.